Victor Newman, the unstoppable patriarch of the Newman family, has been notorious for his ruthless actions and his willingness to go to any lengths in order to safeguard his family and empire for a very long time. The choices he makes, on the other hand, are rarely straightforward, and as a result, people who are closest to him frequently wonder where his devotion truly rests. It is possible that this narrative will take us into Victor's thoughts, reasons, and problems as he faces allegations from his family, business opponents, and perhaps from within himself. To set the stage, Victor has just embarked on a covert business operation that entails a risky collaboration in order to shield Newman Enterprises from an imminent effort to take over the company by a competitor from another country. On the other hand, this choice has resulted in significant consequences, including a negative influence on his relationship with Nikki and his children, particularly Adam, who describes feeling marginalized and exploited by his father once more. To make matters even more difficult, Victoria, in her capacity as CEO of the company, raises concerns about the morality and legality of Victor's decisions. Despite the fact that Victor can be seen standing tall in his office at Newman Tower, the pressure of judgment is pressing down on him from every direction. Victoria and Adam confront Victor, challenging his authority and questioning his motivations. This causes the conflict to become more intense. Victoria is incensed because she believes that her father's decisions, which are made without consulting her, weaken her position as CEO. Adam, on the other hand, is of the opinion that this most recent action is a manifestation of his father's disrespect for him as an equal, which in turn deepens earlier scars. While all is going on, Nikki is having a hard time deciding whether or not she should be loyal to Victor. She finds it difficult to support him without fully comprehending his reasoning. There is no way that you can continue to make choices that put our entire family in danger, Victor, says Victoria. This time, the stakes are far higher than usual. Once more, you have been successful in driving me away, said Adam. If you believe that this is for the family, you should reconsider. Victor tries to justify his actions by pointing out that the relocation was essential in order to safeguard Newman Enterprises. Yet he is aware that the gulf that exists within his family is growing wider. Once Jack Abbott, Victor's erstwhile business competitor, learns about Victor's actions, he takes advantage of the friction that exists among the Newman family to further his own agenda. Jack is well aware of Victor's strategies, and he never hesitates to take advantage of any weaknesses that may exist within the Newman fortress. Adam is approached by him, and he makes a veiled suggestion that he is more than happy to provide support to Adam in the event that he makes the decision to break away from Victor's influence for good. The pivotal moment occurs when Victor learns about Jack's meddling, and knows that his rivals are taking advantage of his weakened position. As a result of his lifetime competition with Jack, Victor is more determined than ever to demonstrate his worth to his family and to safeguard his kingdom from any potential dangers that may come from the outside. Following the escalation of these tensions, Nikki approaches Victor in a moment of vulnerability that is extremely rare. She insists on being truthful and tells him that the family cannot tolerate any further secret or division during this time. He makes an effort to rationalize his acts by arguing that they are a necessary evil that must be done in order to safeguard everyone. In his quest for dominance, Nikki challenges him by pointing out that he runs the risk of losing his family by his actions. Victor, you may become victorious in every battle, but at what cost? Nikki asked. All of the people who love you are leaving you because of you. The words of Victor. Nikki, you have to comprehend. Never before was this solely about power. Rather, it was about making sure that our children have a future. There are instances when this requires making decisions that are not shared by everyone. Victor is forced to confront the personal cost of his unrelenting desire as a result of Nikki's disappointment, which weighs heavily on all of his shoulders. An uproar in the media is caused by Victor's action, which brings Newman Enterprises under close examination. Business analysts and public personalities have raised concerns about the morality of Victor's latest strategy, and some of them have speculated about the possible legal implications that could result from said maneuver. Because of the activities taken by her father, Victoria is under pressure from both the media and shareholders to stand down from her position as CEO. She believes that her father's actions have rendered her position untenable. During this pivotal moment, Victor conducts a news conference in response to the potential backlash that could result from his actions. He maintains his firm conviction that his actions were required in order to safeguard Newman Enterprises. However, his speech is met with a variety of responses, with some shareholders expressing skepticism on the legitimacy of his techniques. Adam approaches Victor by himself in the showdown that serves as the climax. The argument that Victor feels less like a son and more like a pawn as a result of every move that his father makes is that he accuses his father of using the family as a cover for his personal aspirations. Victor admits that his decision was prompted by a secret financial danger that Adam's business ties had accidentally exacerbated, pressing Victor's hand. Victor feels as like he is being trapped, and he decides to divulge this information. Adam, do you even care about us? Or are we all just pawns in your game? Adam asked. Adam, I finished what I needed to finish, Victor said. It's possible that you don't get it right now, but you'll eventually realize the sacrifice that I made. In the aftermath of the confrontation, Adam is left with a sense of even greater isolation, and Victor is left wondering whether or not he will ever be able to mend his relationship with his son. As the fallout of his actions unfolds, Victor watches as both his family and Newman Enterprises are forced to endure the repercussions of his actions. Despite the consequences, he continues to be unwavering in his conviction that he acted in a manner that was beneficial to all parties concerned. His solitary stand, on the other hand, causes him to ponder whether the sacrifice of losing the people he cares about is indeed worth the legacy he leaves behind. The most important reflection is that Victor is thinking about his legacy during a rare time of vulnerability. Sitting in his office, he ponders whether or not his never-ending quest for power has resulted in the acquisition of anything that is actually valuable. After several days of silence, Nikki finally makes contact with Victor and offers him a way to restore their relationship. Despite the fact that his decisions may have been successful in safeguarding the company, she reminds him that he must determine whether or not his family is more important to him than his empire. As Victor's attention is drawn to a photograph of his family that is displayed on his desk, he begins to feel the realization that his ultimate legacy may not be found in Newman Enterprises, but rather in the familial ties that he has neglected for a very long time. This narrative would be an in-depth exploration of Victor's mental state, as well as the impact that his actions have on his personal life, as well as his work experiences. It is possible that the conclusion could leave the door open for Victor's redemption or for a continued cycle of conflict. This will give viewers the opportunity to experience Victor's path of introspection as he wrestles with the consequences of his desire. Fans who have been following the show for a long time will find that the friction within the family, the conflicts of allegiance, and the financial competition with Jack would give a significant amount of drama and stakes. The papers that were scattered on Nate Hastings' desk were the focus of his attention as he sat in his office at Chancellor Winters. Since his return to Genoa City, he had been working diligently ever since. He was motivated by a combination of ambition and the desire to demonstrate his worth in light of everything that had transpired recently. His thoughts wandered back to the turbulent events that had brought him back to his roots, including the complicated relationships he had with his family, friends, and the business world. There was a knock at the door while he was rubbing his temples and leaning back in his chair till he heard the sound. Nate yelled out, "Come in," anticipating some of his coworkers to answer the door. Instead, the door opened to show Amy Lewis, a face from his past that he had not anticipated seeing again. He anticipated seeing her again. Amy? Nate blinked his eyes in astonishment. "What are you doing in this location?" Nate noticed that Amy's look included a trace of stress, despite the fact that she smiled pleasantly. "It's been a long, but I had to come see you. I apologize for the delay. Is it possible for us to talk?" Having his interest piqued, Nate made a motion for her to take a seat behind him. "Without a doubt. What are you thinking about right now?" As Amy took a seat in the chair opposite Nate, the atmosphere crackled with a mixture of sentimentality and tension that was not being expressed. Over the course of Nate's medical career in Chicago, their paths crossed, and they had known each other for a considerable amount of time. Despite the fact that she had been a reliable friend to him through some of the most difficult moments in his life, their lives had gone very different paths. Amy began by saying, "I heard you were back in town," maintaining a steady tone of voice despite the intensity that was beneath her words. "I just wanted to send you a quick message. You gave the impression of having been gone through a lot." Nate acknowledged her concern with a nod, but he was cautious about divulging too much information. "Even though I've experienced both highs and lows, I'm making it through this. How about you then? So how are things going with you?" The response that Amy gave was, "Busy, as always," with a tiny pause in her smile. "Although I am currently employed in marketing, the reason I came here is rather because I require your assistance. Can you help?" So with what intrigue, Nate inquired about it. Amy took a deep breath as she looked at Nate with her eyes searching. "The subject at hand is one of my patients. Although I am aware that you are no longer working as a physician on a full-time basis, I believe that you could provide some insightful perspective." Nate leaned forward, his curiosity piqued by the situation. "Can you tell me about the type of patient we are discussing?" "It's a young lady by the name of Sarah there. She has been encountering difficulties due to an uncommon disease that is having an impact on her mental health. I've exhausted all of my options, but I still have the impression that I'm lacking something. It came to my mind that you were exceptionally talented in your industry, and I thought that you could have some suggestions." As soon as Sarah was brought up, Nate's heart began to soften. It was intriguing to him to have the opportunity to make a difference, even if it was doing so from the sidelines, because he had always been enthusiastic about assisting patients. "I would be delighted to be of assistance to you, Amy. Let's discuss her situation together, shall we?" In the course of their conversation about Sarah's symptoms and medical history, Nate was able to observe the burden of worry that was resting on Amy's shoulders. When he thought back to the late nights that they had spent in the hospital, coming up with answers to difficult cases, he had a resurgence of a sense of purpose. "Have you given any thought to getting a psychological evaluation?" Nate proposed, his thoughts running over the various therapy options that could be available. In rare cases, underlying mental health problems can sometimes emerge in physical symptoms. This is especially true for disorders that are uncommon. Amy responded, "I thought about that," while nodding her head, "but I was unsure whether or not that was the appropriate strategy." "Nate, I am concerned about her a lot. She's been through a lot in her life." Nate couldn't help but think about the connection he had with Amy as their talk progressed further and further down the road. She had always been a source of support for him, particularly during the times when he was struggling with self-doubt and when he was leaving the medical sector. Amy interrupted his train of thought by saying, "I remember when you were contemplating leaving medicine. Despite the fact that you had a strong desire to assist other people, the pressures eventually got to you." Nate let out a sigh, his eyes looking away. "That's right, it wasn't. There are moments when I still have trouble making that decision. My heart longs for the sensation of having a direct influence on the life of another person. There is still a chance for you to make an impact," Amy comforted him. "Even in the capacity that you now hold, you have the ability to make a difference in people's lives through the work that you do in the corporate sector." Nate was grateful for her encouragement, but he couldn't help but feel a twinge of frustration. "I really wish that it were that easy. There are issues that are unique to the business world, and there are moments when I feel like I'm just another gear in the machine because of it." Emily's gaze became more intense. "It's not simply a piece of machinery, Nate. As a leader you are. You have the ability to be a powerful agent of change. It is important not to underrate your capabilities." During the course of their chat, Nate came to the realization that he had neglected to have someone in his life like Amy, someone who understood him, someone who challenged him, and someone who believed in him. They spent a significant amount of time talking about Sarah's situation, coming up with suggestions, and delving into the specifics of the various therapy choices. Invigorated, Nate experienced a sense of revitalization, as if a spark of inspiration had been rekindled within him. Nate expresses his gratitude to the person who came to him with this matter in a sincere manner as the sunlight from the afternoon penetrates the window of the office. "I couldn't be happier that we're able to collaborate once more." The frown on Amy's face softened as she smiled. "Like you, Nate, I am. I always believed that you were destined to accomplish great things. I have the impression that this is simply the beginning of something." He laughed out loud. "Let's keep our fingers crossed that it will result in a breakthrough for Sarah." As they were coming to the end of their meeting, Nate was unable to shake the sensation that this visit was more than just a business reconnection. As if it were the beginning of something fresh, it was an opportunity for him to regain his purpose. Nate's career was given a new lease on life as a result of their tight collaboration on Sarah's case, which took place over the course of the subsequent weeks. He realized that he was looking forward to their sessions, during which they would share personal updates, joke, and share ideas and plans with one another. In the course of one of their sessions, Amy had the idea of establishing a support group for patients who were experiencing circumstances that were comparable to Sarah's. According to what she said, it could provide a platform for them to share their experiences and offer support to one another with one another. Nate cherished the concept. The significance of that cannot be overstated. Let's get rolling on this project. The two of them worked together effectively, and Nate experienced a revitalized sense of purpose in both his personal and professional life as a result. He was impressed by Amy's unwavering commitment and tenacity, and it brought to mind the reasons he had initially fallen in love with the field of medicine from the beginning. During the course of their growing partnership, Nate found himself struggling with a variety of conflicting feelings. From the beginning, he had always thought of Amy as a friend, yet he was now unable to resist the developing attraction he felt towards her. He was drawn to her like a moth to a flame because she possessed attributes such as intelligence, compassion, and determination. One evening, following a meeting that was extremely fruitful, Nate and Amy went out to a nearby restaurant for supper. During their conversation, they reminisced about their time spent in Chicago and the difficulties they had encountered since then. The atmosphere was cozy, and they laughed freely. The words, "I never thought I'd find myself back here, working with you," were spoken by Nate in a hushed voice. "It seems to be a sign of destiny." "Perhaps it is," Amy responded, her eyes gleaming with excitement. "For as long as I can remember, I've held the belief that our paths are destined to cross." The moment hung between them, imbued with tension that was conveyed without words. As Nate cast a glance in Amy's direction, he experienced a mixture of love and hesitation that swept through him. His heart began to accelerate. During that time of celebration, Nate came to the realization that he had evolved with Amy to a significant degree. After first functioning as professional allies, their cooperation had evolved into something much more profound. During the time that they were basking in their accomplishment, Nate found that he was moving closer to Amy. Their connection was no longer just based on their professional endeavors. Rather, it came from the joy of working together to bring about positive change, laughter, and shared experiences. At a certain point in time, when they were celebrating their accomplishments over dinner, Nate reached out and grabbed Amy's hand. "I am unable to stop myself from reflecting on how fortunate I am to have you as a part of my life. For me, you have completely altered everything." The words that he spoke caused Amy's cheeks to flush, and her eyes sparkled. "Nate, I am in the same position as you. You've also helped me rediscover the sense of purpose that I once had in my life." As the heat between them grew stronger, Nate leaned in closer to Amy and planted a passionate kiss on her lips. Before he knew it, he had already done so. This encounter, which felt both natural and exhilarating, served to strengthen the connection that they had previously established. As Nate and Amy's relationship flourished, they discovered a new rhythm in their personal lives as well as in their work lives. They continued their collaboration, which resulted in great progress being made with the support group and inspired others to share their experiences. Nevertheless, as their bond grew stronger, they were also confronted with difficulties that put their love to the test. At Chancellor Winters, rumors started to spread, which ultimately led to feelings of jealousy and uncertainty among some of the employees. Within the context of their objective, Nate and Amy were required to handle the complexity of public perception while simultaneously keeping their concentration. When they were unwinding at Nate's apartment one evening, Nate suggested that they let them talk. "The only thing that matters is that we be aware of what we own." Amy beamed, knowing that she admired his self-assurance. "You are absolutely correct. The only thing that matters is that the work that we are doing is making a difference." At the very moment when everything appeared to be falling into place, Nate was confronted with a huge obstacle at work. A competitor in the business world made a threat to sabotage the projects that he had championed, which caused conflict within the organization. As Nate did his best to defend his projects while also managing his relationship with Amy, he could feel the strain becoming increasingly intense. In the middle of a late-night brainstorming session with Amy, Nate expressed his frustration by saying, "I can't believe they're trying to sabotage us. This is very frustrating." After reaching out, Amy's fingertips lightly touched his arm as she did so. "Together, we will prevail over this challenge. Let's keep moving forward while concentrating on the things that we have control over." Their joint determination provided Nate with the strength he needed, and he became aware of how much he cherished Amy's support during this challenging period. They exerted undue effort in order to counter the strategies employed by their adversary, and their connection became deeper with each obstacle that they encountered. Following a number of weeks of laborious effort and unwavering resolve, Nate and Amy emerged victorious. They were able to successfully navigate the hurdles posed by the corporation while preserving the integrity of their initiatives. The continuous success of the support group, as well as the dramatic improvement in Sarah's condition, is evidence of their dedication to make a difference in the world. It was during the time when they were celebrating their accomplishments that Nate found himself thinking about the road that they had traveled together. He came to the realization that he had come a long way since he had returned to Geno City, and that Amy had had a significant impact on his life. As Nate looked into Amy's eyes, he expressed his gratitude by saying, "Thank you for everything, Amy. I would not have been able to accomplish this without you." Amy had a grin on her face. Her heart swelled with emotion. "Nate, you've always had it in you," someone said. "It was just that I helped you see it." Nate and Amy knew that they were on the verge of beginning a new chapter in their lives, since their career ventures were thriving and their personal relationship was stronger than it had ever been. After going through difficult times, rejoicing in their successes, and strengthening their bond, they were now looking forward to the opportunities that were still to come. When Nate and his companions were walking hand in hand through the park on a bright and sunny afternoon, he experienced a wave of tranquility pass over him. A grin appeared on his face as he shifted his attention to Amy. "I can't wait to find out what the future has in store for us," she said. With a look of unwavering resolve in her eyes, Amy gave his hand a firm squeeze. "No matter what it is, we will face it together," she said. They were surrounded by love and laughter as they strolled, and Nate was aware that he had at long last discovered his place in the world, not only in his professional life, but also in his heart. They were prepared to face the challenges of the world as a unit. Over the course of the subsequent months, Nate and Amy continued to flourish in both their personal and professional lives. Their collaboration turned out to be a ray of light for a great number of people, and the impact that they had on the community only grew greater. Together, they strengthened their connection and their determination to make a difference by gaining knowledge and growing as a result of each obstacle they overcame. The more they looked ahead, Nate came to the realization that this journey was not only about his work or their romantic relationship. Rather, it was about the lives that they affected, the support that they supplied, and the love that they had with one another. Nate and Amy had found their footing in the ever-changing terrain of Geno City. When they were working together, they were nearly impossible to stop. One of those mornings in which everything seemed to be slightly off-kilter was the one that Daniel Romolati was experiencing. After waking up in his apartment in Geno City, he noticed things that he was convinced he had not seen the night before. These included paintings that were not his own, a vintage guitar that was lying against the wall, and a faint scent of jasmine that was wafting in from the open window. When his phone rang, he was taken aback by the caller ID, which revealed that it was his mother. Because she was so preoccupied with her never-ending problems, Phyllis had been significantly aloof during the past few months, despite the fact that it was not unusual for her to call. It wasn't something that was always on the itinerary to answer her call first thing in the morning. But today, something that seemed different was happening. He responded, "Hey, Mom," as he attempted to shake off the peculiar energy that was present in the morning. "It's Daniel." Daniel's internal alarm bells were immediately triggered by the fact that Phyllis' voice had a positive and even enthusiastic tone. "Hello. I just wanted to check in with you and see if you might join me for breakfast." "I have some stories to tell you about." With a response that concealed his perplexity, he said, "Ah, sure." There was no way that Phyllis would have casually gotten brunch with him. On the other hand, he was curious about the reason for her offer. Upon Daniel's arrival at society, he discovered that his mother was already seated at a table, and her disposition was wonderfully radiant. Her expression of delight simply served to amplify the peculiarity that he had been experiencing since the morning. "Incredibly, Daniel, there is something that is taking place. Our entire world is going to be turned upside down by it." Daniel, who was sitting opposite her, said, "Okay, now I'm curious," as he sat there. In a conspiratorial manner, she lowered her voice and leaned in closer. "I received an offer to launch my own business, which would be a luxury spa that would be run in conjunction with Newman Enterprises. It was Victor who made the first move, Daniel. Are you able to believe it?" He was taken aback by this information. Even though he had known for a long time that Phyllis was ambitious, Victor Newman, it was well known that the man was both strategic and, to be honest, cruel. It was too unbelievable for him to voluntarily bring her into his orbit, especially when one considers the intense competition she had with Victoria and Nick during the course of their relationship. "Is it true that Victor came to you with this information?" Still in a state of disbelief, Daniel inquired, "What is the catch, exactly?" In a manner that suggested his worries were unwarranted, Phyllis waved him off. "Daniel, Victor recognizes that I have capabilities. On occasion, life can be somewhat peculiar, but opportunities such as these do not appear on a daily basis." The surety that she exuded did not set well with him. In general, Phyllis was not someone who could be trusted easily, and this was especially true when it came to the Newmans. However, as he observed her passion, he couldn't help but wonder if perhaps she was able to see something that he was unable to. Lucy, Daniel's daughter, paid him an unexpected visit later that day, while he was still trying to come to terms with the news that his mother had presented. She had been staying with Heather, his ex-girlfriend, for a few months, and her abrupt entrance only contributed to the strangeness that seemed to be encompassing his life as of late. Lucy immediately exclaimed, "Dad, I need your assistance," as soon as she went through the door of his flat. The pride that he felt in his heart caused him to give her a hug. "What exactly is going on, Lucy? It appears as though you had witnessed a ghost." "It is complicated," she said, her eyes displaying a mixture of excitement and anxiety. "It's complicated," she said. "I discovered a letter at my mother's residence. It was from a person who was named. Who is Diane Jenkins?" "What's up, Diane?" Daniel furrowed his face in surprise. That comes as a surprise. A long and tangled history can be traced back to Diane in Genoa City. A big breath was taken by Lucy. During the course of the letter, she mentioned something about a covert collaboration. "It was you, Dad, that she mentioned, along with the Newmans and the Abbotts. I was told by her that you were a part of something significant and maybe harmful." An unexpected shift occurred in Daniel's environment. At the very least, he had not engaged in any business activities with Diane Jenkins, which would have resulted in a clandestine alliance. The words in the letter, however, caused his blood to become ice cold when Lucy gave it to him. In addition to mentioning hidden goals and betrayal, it also mentioned a future shift that was dependent Daniel's participation, which was a very concerning note. "I don't know how to explain this, but I'm pretty sure we're stepping into something that shouldn't be messed with. Lucy, I don't realize how to explain this." Daniel, who was resolute in his pursuit of the truth, brought the letter to Jack Abbott in the expectation of gaining some understanding. Jack's family had a troubled past with Diane, and if anyone knew anything about her, it would make him the most knowledgeable person. Upon Daniel's arrival at the Abbott mansion, he discovered Jack deeply absorbed in his thoughts as he fervently examined the old photographs that were dispersed on the living room table. Jack raised his head, and his attitude shifted to one of cautious curiosity as he did so. I am curious, Daniel. What brings you here? Daniel started by saying, Jack, I found this letter. And then he handed it to him. It comes from Diane, and it makes reference to me, in conjunction with a partnership of some type. Are you familiar with any of this information? As he read the letter, Jack's face became increasingly pale. This is not possible. There is no way that Diane would have written this. It is a setup. Daniel, someone is trying to play a joke on you by attempting to drag you back into past conflicts. Daniel responded by saying, perhaps, but it seems like it's too personal. I am also interested in learning the reasons why Diane might wish to include me. A deep sigh came from Jack. Diane was a skillful manipulator who was able to pull strings behind the scenes. If she left this, there is a significant likelihood that she is using you as a means of rekindling tensions between the Newmans and the Abbotts. Jack's words caused Daniel to feel a chill, yet a part of him understood that he couldn't just walk away from the situation. Whoever was attempting to exert influence over him was going to rue their actions. Daniel, who was intent on discovering the truth about the mystery, made a request to meet with Victor Newman directly during the conference. It was at midnight when he entered Newman Tower, and he had the impression that he was entering territory that was controlled by the enemy. He was met by Victor with a smile that was cautious. My assumption is that you have some inquiries, Daniel. You could say that, Daniel responded, maintaining a neutral tone throughout the exchange. To what extent are you aware of Diane's alliance, and what is the reason that I am a member of it? With a glint in his eyes, Victor laughed out loud. It's you, Diane Jenkins, a woman who was skilled in the game she was playing. And Daniel, if you believe that you are nothing more than a pawn, you are mistaken. Because you are a connection between strong families in Geno City, you hold a position that is truly unique. In all honesty, Diane recognized your potential, and I do as well. Daniel's fists were tightly clenched. I have no interest in playing the role of a puppet for you or anyone else, I said. Victor's expression became more resolute. You are not understanding. Control is not the issue here. Rather, power is the issue. Both the Newmans and the Abbotts will come into conflict, and you will have the opportunity to determine the outcome. On the other hand, if you are not prepared, then other people will make the decision for you. Daniel was taken aback by Victor's said comments. He came to the realization that he was in the middle of a potentially hazardous power battle, and that everyone was expecting him to choose a side. Daniel experienced a sense of being torn between two different universes during the course of the subsequent several days. On the other hand, there was the Newman family, who had an unrelenting desire to exert power. On the other hand, there were the Abbotts, whose reasons that were just as mysterious were veiled in mysteries. As soon as Lily became aware of his distress, she took him aside to the offices of the Chancellor and Winters. What exactly is going on, Daniel? You appear to be carrying the burden of the entire planet on your shoulders. He let out a sigh and turned his gaze away. It seems as though I am in the midst of something significant. The Newmans and the Abbotts are both attempting to take advantage of me for their own purposes. I really don't know who I can put my faith in. There was a hand placed on his shoulder by Lily. Have faith in yourself. They may have their own goals in mind, but you have the ability to choose. You are free to opt out of playing their game and instead set off on your own road. It was her remarks that touched a nerve in him. Daniel came to the realization that he did not have to be a pawn. He could be a player right along going through a difficult time. Daniel was able to find an unexpected ally in Adam Newman. Adam had always been the outcast of the Newman family, and Daniel believed that he might be the one person who could provide him with information without having any hidden agenda. Adam confessed in Daniel, "Daniel, everyone is pushing you because they are scared." When they were enjoying a calm drink, they are going completely insane because of the kind of effect that you have that they are unable to control. One of Daniel's eyebrows was lifted. What exactly do you hope to accomplish by assisting me?" Adam gave a smirk. "Let's just say that I enjoy watching them struggle," she said. "But in all seriousness, you shouldn't give in to their pressure. You should go your own way, even if it means losing the approval of both of your families." Upon realizing that he was capable of taking charge, Daniel's self-assurance increased. This was not about being someone else's puppet. Rather, it was about restoring his power in Geno City. At the point that the tensions reached a boiling point, Daniel was aware that he needed to make a choice. At a gathering that was hosted jointly by Newman and Abbott, he stood in front of both families, prepared to make his decision public. "I'm done being dragged into your feuds," he proclaimed with a firm expression on his face. "I'm not going to take a side. From now on, I will be responsible for making my own decisions. Although I am willing to collaborate with anyone who respects it, I will not be a pawn in your games." After a moment of silence, both families were left speechless. Daniel experienced a sense of liberation for the very first time, as if a burden had been lifted off of his shoulders. Over the course of the weeks that followed, Daniel discovered that he had a newly discovered sense of purpose. His primary priorities were to advance his professional career, provide for his daughter, and keep the relationships that were important to him maintained. The warped cosmos that he had created had corrected itself, and for the first time in years, he experienced a sense of genuine serenity. Despite the fact that his journey had been perilous, he was confident that he was now on the right path, one that was completely personalized to him.